Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scotty Hagnes. This is Conversations, Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity. Scotty, how goes it?
It's going pretty well here.
Yeah.
Everything's cleared out and things are sort of back to somewhat of normalcy.
Well, as of last week, we were talking about natural disasters. Have the fires been under control at all more up there?
They haven't really been spreading. I mean, they're definitely there, and it
Uh-huh.
has definitely cooled off some. And actually, after tomorrow, looks like they have a week of rain on tap, which we haven't
All
seen any
right.
rain since early June. So they should. I mean, and the air's been perfectly clear for about a week. The winds shifted. So
Oh goodness.
been
Thank
nice and
goodness.
sunny. But going to the east side, and you guys didn't get the brunt of it there, it sounds like.
Thankfully, no. The West Coast got smashed a little bit. I mean, the Keys got crushed. Miami was underwater for a little while, but it looks like it could have been a lot worse just based upon the size of the storm and the intensities of which it was. We got lucky, but hopefully this is a good indication of what our abilities to handle storms and that kind of thing are for this area. Things. I mean, by Tuesday, my internet was on and my power was back. So when we got back from Destin, it was like nothing happened. So there were some people who were powerless until Wednesday night, Thursday night. There's some people within the area that are still kind of out of power, which are like a little bit of in a little bit isolated areas. But for the most part, everybody's got their power back, and things are seeming to go back to somewhat normalcy. A little bit here and there for the internet, but the cleanup is going to be the biggest thing. Of like, there's just so much tree debris and all sorts of other stuff blown around. So, it'll take a couple of weeks, but luckily that wasn't too much structural damage for a lot of the places.
Nice. Yeah, getting things are a little more resistant and built to handle it probably now than they once
Back in the
were.
'90s when they had Andrew come through, they were really diligent about putting up new structures that were resilient to like Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. And it shows like there's a reason why these buildings are still standing, and we really didn't have much of an issue, even though that the winds were pretty. They were gusting up to 100 miles an hour in our area, so we were very fortunate to only have that. And cleanup is on. They're hurt pretty bad down in the Keys, so we're probably going to be doing a little bit of fundraising, that kind of stuff, in the near future to help them out as well.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Well, good to hear. Yeah.
Scott, do you have anything that you were working with some training?
Well, I was gonna. A couple weeks ago, we talked about. I was kind of toying around with this one set of 20 program,
Yeah, I believe so.
kind of popularized by Michael Yessis, and doing some more reading on it, seeing some more examples, and started employing it with a few athletes where it was appropriate, some new folks, and then myself coming off most of a long way off of any significant work in the gym, started implementing it, and it's obviously I don't have a lot of feedback yet, but an update a couple weeks in is pretty interesting. I mean, I'm able to improve week to week, or actually workout to workout. I'm doing it 3 days a week, so
Uh huh.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I can generally either add reps or weight nearly every workout, which is kind of nice. I've only was lightly sore, and that was from some of the kind of unusual exercises that I hadn't really had much experience doing. So I'm doing roughly 20 exercises, and what I basically do is I kind of come in with some of the lighter single joint stuff, like some wrist work, wrist prep, calf work, those sorts of things, which kind of warm me up. Then I get into the heavier, more full body compound stuff, and kind of in a peripheral hard action or almost German body comp method, I kind of
Yep.
pair lower upper push, upper pull, or single arm, single leg in there. So I'm rotating areas of the body. I'm not watching my rest. I'm just moving when I feel ready to do a set. I find only some exercises I don't do a warm up set at all. Others I'll do like a set of 10 lighter. Keep moving pretty good. Get up into that kind of aerobic threshold range by the heavier stuff, but not gas. But it has a trace of a feel of a chipper workout to some
Yeah.
degree. And then I kind of finish out going back to some of the smaller joint, stability work and lighter exercises. But by that point, you're going along pretty good. They keep pretty up in that moderate effort range, even though
Yeah.
they're small movements. Like I said, all things across the board are moving up. Um, pretty efficient. I'm done in about a half hour.
It's
Um,
awesome.
and so so I'm still riding a lot, working on a riding project. I find that I can tack that onto the end of a ride. It says only maybe 5 to 7 minutes from where I ride back to the gym. I'm still
Yep.
warm and loose. Come in,
Perfect.
just dive right into it.
Yeah, man.
So
That's
it works
nice.
really well for supplemental type stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice, man. I like it. So, what do you think the theory behind it is? Like, why do you think this potentially has an effect on the body and an effect on a stimulus?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it isn't for everyone in every case, but it's kind of trying to find what is the minimally effective dose.
Hmm.
And for particularly, my interest no longer is really chasing any particular gym-based thing. It's,
Hmm.
I sport of biking, so I'm trying to look at things that will support that.
Yep.
I just worked with a client. I'm also having to a version of it who's a up and coming professional dancer. I've worked with this individual for about a year and a half, but he super heavy volume of dancing over the summer. Took the summer largely off from any training outside of that, so it's perfect to ease him back in, kind of see where he's at, expose him to some new movements. And you're kind of getting a continuum. You're getting strength endurance. You're getting some levels of maximal strength in there by the end, and more blood flow and connective tissue strengthening, I think, is a key, especially for someone whose interest is primarily other sports and not, you know, just purely gym based.
Yep. Very interesting.
Yeah, so I wouldn't see this as necessarily so applicable to say an off-season CrossFitter.
Yeah.
Elements of it certainly could be.
Yeah.
I could plug in a bunch of structural work, and it certainly I could have. I can see where this is going. If you check in 6 weeks, once I'm really moving, pretty significant loads for me on some of these exercises, I mean, it might feel like I'm getting flogged pretty good by the end if I'm not careful with my rest.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when you think about it, like you're doing 20 solid reps, what do you think the weight maximal, like relative to your max? What do you think the weights are relative to your max that you're using on a particular work movement?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, I think those of us that are used to pushing deeper sets, any amount of same sorts of CrossFit could probably get upwards into, as high as 70 or more percent in that
Yeah.
range if we're really getting after it and working on it. Others might be, significantly lower,
Yeah.
50,
So,
55% maybe.
so just thinking about like if you were to not do, so say you said I was going to do 4 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 4 at between 60 and 70% of your max, just, being conservative. Like that would be decent work, especially if you're doing it 3 times a week. And that's not
Yeah,
too far
I
off
think
of,
that's the other point. Yeah, is that you're doing it frequently.
yeah,
And you look at the end of the week, now you look at, okay, I've done 60 fairly challenging reps and a bunch of compound
exactly.
multi-joint
Yeah.
movements,
Yeah.
and you can
So,
see where that's,
yeah. And again, every time you manipulate the reps or manipulate the rest or manipulate the number of sets, you are going to, I think, in some way kind of change things up because I think there's a significant difference between 4 sets of 5 at 70% and one set of 20 at 70%.
yeah, yes, yeah. Same total mechanical work, but I think we all know that the effect and the residual effects would be different of those
Yeah.
two things.
Yeah. Like literally, like if I do a set of wall balls, like, 5 sets of 10 wall balls versus even just putting it down for a second and picking it back up, it's significantly different than 50 wall balls straight.
Yes.
Right. So,
Yeah.
there's, and I don't know, and I don't know if anyone knows the exact difference in physiology there, but there, we can just take it for what it is. It says there is a difference. What is that going to get you better at? Like, so say you did do 4 sets of 5, 4 sets of 5 relative to, or as opposed to one set of 20, what are the positives and negatives versus that? And what are you actually trying to do? So like, let's just kind of go over that. Like, so if you did one
Yeah.
set of 20, what are the benefits of that relative to, or as opposed to 4 sets of 5?
I would say, just off the top of my head, doing the one set of 20, you're going to probably get a greater tendon and ligament strengthening effect. You're probably going to get a greater blood flow effect. You're definitely going to get a greater muscular endurance effect.
Yep.
And you might actually tap into some of the high threshold fibers by the end more heavily as some of the fibers knock out as you go into fatigue. Now, on the benefits of going on the four sets of 5, you could have a higher power output if your intent is to explode up with maximal intent each rep. And now you may actually produce more power. It
Yep.
might, I would say it probably would carry over a little better to maximal strength. Now you're not necessarily fatiguing the fibers in the same way as you are in those final reps when it's really challenging.
And keep in
but
mind,
you may get a higher neural recruitment.
And keep in mind also, we're working 60 to 70% for 4 sets of 5. This isn't like, really pushing those last reps aren't going to be challenging, but they're going to be explosive.
No. They're going to be explosive. Yep,
on the 4 sets of 5. Yep.
Yeah. And I think another point that is just imagine the same workout, so all these 20 exercises or so that I did one set of 20.
Yep.
Now imagine if I did all those as 4 sets of 5 with appropriate rest. Even if I pair them up into, A1,
Yep.
A2 and down the line, how long is that going to take me to do?
Yep. There's no way that anybody is doing 10 different supersets or, of 4 sets of 5 in any kind of, because you were doing 20 exercises, you said?
And then this is counting things like reverse wrist push-ups and some calf raises and even some pronation, supination. But some of the stuff are squats, heavy loaded split squats, pull-ups, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like it a lot. Again, it's just it's a matter of what are you trying to get out of this. If you're looking, as you said, if you're looking to get maximal strength work, probably not the greatest thing in the world. If you're looking for some hypertrophy, muscular endurance, maybe even neural grooving stuff, just because you're getting 3 touches a week on something, like I think that could be potentially a good thing. If you're looking, and that being said, neural grooving in the sense that your entire body is getting a neural groove, not just specific movements. Because if I was going to say I want to really specifically work on your squat, the squat becomes the priority, and then you're doing maybe 5x5 squat or 3x5 squat 3 times a week, and that becomes the priority. Whereas if you're like, well, overall body health is the priority, and by that you're going to be hitting your whole body every single time you train. I think we've said it before. Dan John says if it's important, train it every day. If you find that every part of your body is important to train, you should be training it every day. And it seems like this, 20 rep could potentially be one of those things.
Yeah. I so far I like it a lot. I could see it might become a tad monotonous, but I tend to planning to rotate things.
Yeah.
I mean, so some things. This first block, what I've done is I've taken and biased some of the things you would normally do as supplementary stuff early on, and I've saved some of the heaviest stuff later. So I kind of come into a pre-fatigue state on purpose. Takes the loading down a bit. But then as I go through the second phase of this, I'll flip it around where outside of a few little multi-joint things to warm up, I will hit the heavy stuff first, a little more traditional. And then after I find myself starting to plateau out, I'll drop some of the supplementary exercises. So the pool will become smaller, and I'll probably drop the plan that talks about dropping to 14 reps. So you're getting heavier, but that's the goal. And 20 is a bit of a misnomer too, because it's not always 20. Some of the things I tapped out before that. Some of the things when the weight jumps on some of the smaller movements are fairly significant. It suggests going up as high as 24 or 25 because your next weight jump might take you down to 15, let's say.
Yes.
And so you're building your way back up.
Which is why in the beginning you said I either added reps or I added weight depending upon the movement.
Exactly. Yeah. Some things I just couldn't get 20 yet.
Yeah.
I think to be in the ballpark, so you probably should be getting at least 12 starting off, or maybe you've chosen too difficult of a variation or weight.
Yep. I like it.
So we'll maybe every few weeks we'll just touch in and I'll have a pool of data
more about that
with a couple of clients and then also myself as we go.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I started doing a little bit of more baseline testing, just seeing where I'm at. I haven't built to anything in months, potentially over a year in some of these areas. Like I haven't built to a heavy single in the back squat in over a year, maybe since we were working together. So maybe a strict press. And this is also coming off of, I think this is 8 weeks out from shoulder injury. If I can look here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 6. Yeah, this will be week 7, I think. So it was week
Mhm. Wow.
51, episode 51, and now this is episode 57. So yeah, it's about right.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is week
Fast.
7. I know it goes fast, right? This is week 7 after being injured, and just obviously update. I still have localized pain in the joint, especially on distraction of the joint itself. But one of the things that I've been realizing is that I'm not hanging with scapular upward rotation and elevation.
Ah,
So
so
when
you're jamming the glenohumeral joint a bit there,
so when
huh?
I'm actually letting my shoulder come up and rise, that allows me to feel a lot less pain. But the thing is, your shoulder blade can't rise if your rib cage is in a hyperinflated, extended position because you get stuck. You're forced to be in a depressed position, and naturally, to get range of motion, you're going to pull from your joint. So,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I tested all that stuff yesterday, and I wanted to see where I was at. Now having the knowledge, so I took some baseline tests, and I've also been doing some energy system training as well, taking that as one of the bigger things that I've been working. So let's start with the energy system stuff. So over the last I guess I did like a full 4-week cycle of it, but prior to that, like I got injured, and then I really wasn't able to do much for about a week to 2 weeks, and then I got into about a 4-week build where I was doing 10-minute, 10-minute, 10-minute intervals, and then I took a deload week, and then I got back from my trip, and I did a 10-minute max calorie airdyne test and did 167 calories in 10 minutes. Unfortunately, my heart rate monitor didn't work. So I didn't get heart rate stuff, but I'm pretty sure I know where it was, and I was recovered within 90 seconds of the effort.
Wow.
So
Nice. And what are you doing? That was mixed modal 10-minute work
it was
pieces,
it
right?
was
You had done
one
in
one
training?
run. It started out bike, LeFloc, LeFloch. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a bike, row, run, so 10-minute, 10-minute interval. So I wasn't spending all that much time, though. The emphasis was more aerobic development than it was specific sport development or modality
Ah,
development. But I was
yeah.
my pace on the during the intervals was holding about 62 to 63 RPMs throughout. And the idea is because it's a 10-minute interval, you probably want to be doing your race pace for 30 minutes. That's kind of like the idea because we're
Yeah.
kind of like the
Trying
OPT-ish
to stay
kind of
aerobic.
stuff
Yeah.
and trying to stay
Mm-hmm.
aerobic. And again, all those efforts, when I got within a minute of finishing, I was recovered within a minute.
Yeah.
The pace I used on the bike, I try to hold over 66 RPMs throughout. So the first 10 seconds I went hard just to kind of get some calories in the bank. And then I was holding between 66 and 68 RPMs throughout. You could probably see what the wattage is on a salt bike for that. The other thing that I was aware of was I think at the halfway point, I think I was around 100, maybe no, not 100. What's midnight? 80 something, like 86 calories, I want to say. So I think it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much consistent effort throughout, probably.
Pretty
It
easy,
wasn't like
both ends. Yeah. Yeah.
it was the heart rate went this.
Yeah.
You know what I
Nice and
mean? And
steady upward. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So again, and there's a part of me that goes, "Oh wow, I'm way behind," but then there's another part of me that says you recovered within a minute, and then you were able to come back and do heavy power clean, heavy back squat, which I'll talk about in a second, later on in the day. So I wasn't able to go into higher heart rates yet, which was obviously typical because or expected, because I wasn't really training those. I was doing some 30-second
Mm-hmm.
intervals, like 10 sets of 30-30s, like pairing that up with push-ups just for like a muscular endurance type effect and to practice breathing.
Ah,
But that
yeah.
was once a week. So 10 sets of 30-30s was about as much power work I was getting on the bike. So this says two things to me. One, if you want to get better at the 10-minute max assault bike, 10 sets of 30-30s is not going to help that much.
Mm-hmm.
But doing 10-minute intervals allows you to have a good base layer so that you can take advantage of the 160 to 170 heart rates. Now what I have to do is get more into the 3 to 5 minute range, in my opinion, and this is why I bring it to you, is it necessary to get into the 30 to 1 minute, or is it probably better to focus on 3 to 5 minute range for a 10-minute test? What's your
I
thoughts?
personally think that more in the 3 to 5 range is probably going to be more beneficial for a 10-minute all-out test. I think
Would you play
for
around
most.
with 10-minute intervals anymore, or would you incorporate that very much?
I think I would maybe keep touches on it. If depending on how long your cycle is, maybe like a bi-weekly thing where you're working out to that duration,
Yep.
even possibly a touch longer, just so you're kind of acclimated to working into that range. But I would do most of the development work on some a little bit shorter and
Would a like
volley.
long, slow one once a week be sufficient enough, or do you think it needs to be at a higher intensity, like getting on the bike for between 30 and 60 minutes once a week, along with I was thinking 2 days a week, where one day would be, let's say it's 3 to 8 sets, building over time of those 3 minute intervals with one-to-one work to rest, and then another day a week. This is what I was thinking of, was either doing one of the two: 1 minute at your race pace, rest 20 seconds times three, rest 5 minutes times like 3 series. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, what's funny is I was, it's so funny. Right as I heard you say 1 minute, I just jogged in my head. I did a workout that I thought was fairly miserable, but fairly effective. It was 1 minute on, 20 seconds. And I forget the exact number, but it was a large number of repeats before everything was all said and done.
Uh huh.
And I think that um, would probably have a lot better carryover for a 10 minute than a 30-30.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my opinion. I mean, I think 30-30 is for a competitive CrossFitter and who is looking to do a lot of different things and change modalities on a fairly quick pace might be good. But if you're really more worried about testing a more pure test like a 10-minute Airdyne, I think
Yeah.
it's maybe not the most efficient.
I think 30-30s are great for practicing cycling speed.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, can that be sustainable? And that's where I think some people get it wrong. Is that I did 10 minutes of 30-30s on the wall balls. Or not on wall balls. Wall balls is pretty set, but let's say power cleans. Let's make it really ridiculous. I did 10 sets of 30-30s, hang power snatches. Oh, how did that go? Well, it was really hard, especially the last 5 minutes. Okay, so that wasn't sustainable. You
It
just
wasn't
practiced moving the
sustainable,
bar
yeah.
quickly, but you didn't practice the bar moving the bar quickly in an aerobic, sustainable way.
Right.
You
Yeah, you're
know,
training the wrong thing to what you're
and
really
I've
wanting.
done that before. I've done the like 150-meter row, rest a minute times multiple repeats, and it did not get me anywhere when it came to the test that I was trying to work on. However, I'm thinking the 1 minute go, 20-second rest, and then take like 3 sets, let's say, so you get the volume in that you wanted on that set, rest the complete
Mm-hmm.
rest, and then do multiples of that.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's pretty solid.
and then the other way I was thinking of is maybe this is toward the peaking, is doing 3 minute intervals, but doing a 3 minute interval, like let's say it's 70%, then rest, 80%, then rest, then 90%. So like uh, almost like working on your gears, so to speak, and allowing you to get confidence in feeling those gears and kind of warming yourself up to the percentages that you need, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So another
Yeah,
idea there.
I like that.
And maybe even tinkering with the rest time. So your first interval is a short rest because your effort isn't all that much. But by the time you get to
Yeah.
that third repeat, you're doing a full rest before you go through again, so you can get confident in feeling your gears, but also getting proper energy system development, so that you're not doing a 10 to 15 minute mixed warm up and be like, all right, here we go, time to go at 90% of my best. And all of a sudden, that first interval really doesn't do much for you, and you might be tapping into more of a fatigue-based, maybe a little more high lactate than you would had you not done build-ups to it. So think about like wave work and how
Yeah.
successful that is for people.
Mm-hmm.
And they do like three,
Mm-hmm.
two, one, 3-2-1, 3-2-1, and by that last one, they're like, this feels awesome, because they're kind of greasing the groove a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I think that's money.
so maybe what I'll
Building
do is
up, knowing your gears,
maybe
progressively ramping the
closer
system
to
up.
testing. That's what I'll do. So like maybe I'll do an 8-week block, and I'll do like 1 minute on, 20 seconds rest, and then for 3 sets do multiples of that, and then the other day of the week I'll do 3-minute intervals at race pace with full rest. So I'll do those, get good 2 touches a week on it, and then for recovery work throw that in for the longer bike between 30 and 60 minutes, just to get comfortable sitting on the bike for longer amounts of time. And then we'll see what happens after probably about an 8-week cycle. Probably about halfway through, take a deload maybe, or maybe I'll think about it. Like when I want to deload it, and then when I want to kind of do a peak almost, if that makes sense. Because I don't want to do a deload test. I want to do a deload or volume build, deload, peaking test. So I think that's probably more of what I want to do. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's. I just want to see if this actually is something to do. It's more of like a coach trying to tinker around with something to see if it's legit, experiential knowledge.
Yeah. No, totally. I like that. I love playing around and testing stuff out.
Yep. So on the opposite side of the spectrum, hit the best quality heavy single I have on a back squat. So like that my last 1.5 to 2 years has been dedicated to kind of deconstructing positions and then seeing how close to perfect I can get for my own body in terms of squat, deadlift, press, that kind of stuff. So I hit my best single I think I ever have at 345. I haven't been able to load my shoulder for a good amount of time. I think last week before the storm. So once in the last 7 weeks, I back squatted. I did some speed work on the back squat with a safety bar up to 185 maybe. Maybe I did some pause reps at like 225 or something like that. Like a few. This is the most I did was I did 245 for a pause set of 4 2 weeks ago. Prior to that, I was doing the functional bodybuilding type stuff, but then took 2 weeks off completely from training. I did single leg work, so I was doing heavy dumbbell split squats up to 80 pounds per hand for sets of 4 or 5. So, some good work. But the biggest thing that I've been working on was positions, breathing, learning how to turn core on, turn hip flexors off. So I hit a 345 single. RP was probably like a 9.5. Maybe had another 5 pounds in there, but positions were good. And as I grind, it wasn't like a breakdown in form. It was just a grind through the weight. So that was good. Before that was in the PM of doing the assault bike test. So, take that for what it's worth. And I built to a power clean at 255. Form was a little off. But something I learned through that was eccentric loading of the hamstrings. So this is what I learned. We're in our starting position, knees are bent. And this is something that I've never been able to do consistently because of dominance of lats, lower back, pecs. You don't have hamstrings when you're dominant through your back. So in that starting position, as you drive off the floor, say it's a row, say it's a deadlift, whatever it might be, you're pushing through your heels to eccentrically load your hamstrings. I never really knew that. I really never understood that. I thought knees back means knees back. Knees back allows for the hamstrings to eccentrically load instead of just shoving your knees back and tipping over. There's a big difference between the two. Get on a rower, shove your knees back. The handle doesn't go anywhere. Get on the rower, load your hamstrings, and you're going to see that thing fly. That flywheel goes when you do that. That is what I learned through that power clean, because it wasn't exactly the most beautiful 255 I've ever hit, but it was okay. But I'm like, you know what? Like, what's going on here? So that's something I learned through that. So there's no failures. It's just learning. The squat, all right, we're getting there. But even there, potentially you could be eccentrically loading your hamstrings on a squat. You're extending your legs. You shouldn't just be leaning back from your back and just driving with your quads. There's hamstrings and butt involved there. So learning that moving forward, that's going to be huge. So I can use my entire leg joint. And then yesterday, I tested strict gymnastics and strict press. I hit a 170 press after not using my upper body for anything extensive for 8 weeks or 7 weeks. So hitting a bodyweight press, and again, all positional exercises and stuff like that. So able to keep some upper body pushing strength after 7 weeks of nothing. And then strict handstand push-ups 26. Kipping in 1 minute.
Nice.
Kipping in 1 minute was 28. So just as many reps as possible.
Yeah.
Strict pull-ups, chest to bar 10. That exposed something in terms of rib cage position. We kind of hit on that a little bit. So unable to. So if you're in a hyperinflated extended position, it's impossible to get yourself pulling to the bar. So learning how to get your ribs down and then pulling. And then I did a push-up test because I've been doing 30-second intervals on the push-ups and seeing how that kind of like worked out. Once a week I was doing that, and I got 41 push-ups in a minute. The last test I did, and this is something that we worked on before, was the horizontal pull test, holding for 30 as long as you can in a horizontal pull.
Bat wings, basically.
I did it on the rings, with the feet, even with the rings, their hands.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
And I was able to hold a 30-second interval there with good technique. And the biggest thing that I saw of all this is just let me assess the quality of movement for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm light years ahead of where I am, but I'm now aware of the areas that I need to tweak just a little bit and the areas I can crank up in order for me to start actually getting strong in those positions and areas. Because I think one of the biggest things that I've been doing for so long is just we've been doing the best we can with what we got, and it gets to a point where you're not going to be able to go any further. That being said, my physiology is different, my age is different, my training age is different. Let's see how far I can go now that some of these positions are a little cleaner, being mindful of that stuff, and then also not being neurotic about being perfect also.
Yeah.
So
I think that sounds like money. That's kind of a nice discovery, huh?
So yeah, we'll see. Now it's a matter of like, how do I attack this shit?
Yeah.
So because a lot of the stuff we've gone through before, but it's like, all right, did we go through it properly? Was I training the right way, even though I was hitting the reps and sets the right way? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think that's probably something we can talk about. Maybe
gear back down to a pretty simple program, probably, and make good progress
and
using
just make
really
be mindful of what's going on. Good warm ups, that kind of stuff.
positioning, and
Cool. All right, Scott. I think that's probably all we got for today. I know you got to get going for your class and that kind of stuff.
I got to run.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You got anything else for today?
I think it's good for today.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm Sean LaFrock. You can get me at Sean@CrossFitDelrabeach.com.
Scott Hagnes, you can get me at Scott@CrossFitPortland.com.
Awesome, Scotty. We'll talk to you next week, brother.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Take care.